Good morning, Snow West. It's Christopher, your friendly forum admin from snowwest.com. Today is Saturday, August 17th, and we're down in Idaho Falls on the Riverwalk. On Saturdays, I take the Huskies out for a 10-miler. And generally we come down to the Riverwalk, and it's 5 miles down on the Snake River, 5 miles back up. But usually I don't shoot these little blogs down there because it's just entirely too busy. However, today's video log is going to be something a little unusual. It is going to have a lot of cuts and a lot of breaks, so I'm giving you warnings in advance. Because there are so many people down here and the dogs get so crazy, I will have to cut out frequently. Now, I want to give you a heads up. This is going to be a long, multi-segmented video, though, as always, it's unscripted and it won't be edited at the end. Yesterday I posted a video that had a question. Many of you guys know I've been invited to come to the Idaho State Snowmobile Association convention in Island Park this coming fall, and I asked what you wanted me to talk about, and I got a pile of replies. In and of itself, nothing new, nothing special, but a lot of replies came privately, and a lot of those replies were long, seriously well written, thought out. I apparently struck a chord with several people. And as I was reading through those all night and early this morning, before we came down here for the dog walk, I had a real epiphany. I was able to tie together some things that I thought were completely separate and disjointed. Okay, first break. These are my Huskies, Sasha, Tasha, Misha, and Ember. Just want to give a reference so you guys can all see them once before I start my daily walk. This is going to be a challenge, just to, again, all you guys know. It's very busy down here. I have a lot of people. There's a lot of stopping and starting, so this video is going to seem a little disjointed. But as I was reading all of the messages from you guys that came in over the evening, there were a couple of themes that really hammered home, and as I started pondering on those and thinking about them, I had a real epiphany about snowmobiling and about these dogs. As you know, during the summertime, every video you see, I've got my Huskies. So I want to walk you through a couple of stories, and by the end of today's walk, and for me this will be a 3-hour adventure, there's going to be a lot of segments, I will do my best to tie all these little bits and pieces together into one coherent subject matter. I'm going to try using my hand for a little while instead of using the gimbal. It's just going to get very complicated. So on Saturday mornings when I take the pups out, one of the first things we do on this walk is head down to the farmer's market. And the farmer's market here in Idaho Falls is wildly popular. It is busy, it is packed. It is not uncommon to see 1,000+ people at the farmer's market. And it's just coming up just around the corner here, and we'll be there. I apologize, the video is going to be shaky, but if I try to use the gimbal right now, I will not be able to control the dogs, and that's going to become real important as I come around this corner and we go into the crowds. Dog control, kind of like sled control, becomes paramount. But I want to set the stage as part of the story that I want to tell you today, that the farmer's market and all the people we see with the dogs are paramount to that little epiphany I was telling you about. So we're coming into the market now, and you can begin to see it goes for about a quarter of a mile. There's probably 50 to 100 stands and all manner of goodness and fun. But I bring the dogs down here every weekend to socialize them. I want to expose the pups to as many people and as varying an environment as I possibly can. And with the crowds that we've got here, this puts the dogs in an environment where there's lots of people walking around them, lots of hands on them, and that's good for the dogs. So as we walk through in the morning, the dogs get to see lots of people, the people get to see lots of dogs. And the crowd is good for the dogs, and the dogs, I think, in all honesty, are good for the crowd. So it's kind of a win-win situation. Yes, ma'am, we got sleds at home. Yes, this really will all tie together into snowmobiling, trust me. It's going to be just a bit of a journey for us to get from here to there, though. Come on, girls, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. This is going to be a challenging video to make. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. It will not be the easiest one I've ever done, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We're out of the farmer's market and over to the Japanese Friendship Village now, which will make it considerably easier, but there's still going to be lots of seconds. Oh my goodness. We made it down to just below the falls in Idaho Falls. I'll zoom in just a little bit. Those are the falls that the city has its name for. We're in a little, they call it the Japanese Friendship Park. And that's our first stop for the dogs, where we normally get a little bit of water and a moment for them to collect themselves after going through the farmer's market, which tends to be a little stressful because there's so many little hands, so many people that want to say hi to the puppies. All right, from here on, this ought to get considerably easier and much more friendly. Once again, downtown Idaho Falls, going across the old trestle. You can see some of the falls. It's a genuinely nice place. Got the puppies out, but we're out of the crowds from here on. It ought to be easier to tell the story now. All right, as we keep jumping from segment to segment here. So, I'm going to tell you a story about the dogs. That's going to be the intro to how this whole thing works and how that epiphany I had this morning ties into snowmobiling. 61 years old. I grew up with cats. Never owned a dog. Didn't really grow up with dogs. Dogs are not part of my family. But I've had 12 cats since as far back as I can remember. But these 4 huskies, they're not my dogs. They're all rescues. Each one of them I inherited, more or less on accident, unintentionally. But having come to have the dogs, I've totally fallen in love with the dogs. And as I mentioned earlier, when you see these posts during the summertime, you know that every single time I'm out walking, I have the dogs with me. The dogs like to be with me. The dogs want to be with me. The dogs enjoy going out, going on these walks. Be good, girls. Be good. Good girls. Very good. Thank you, sir. And so I spend as much time with the dogs as I can. And being that they're wolfish, and a lot of people are very standoffish about dogs, I spend a lot of time socializing the dogs, and I introduce them to people so that other folks are comfortable around my dogs and my dogs are comfortable around other folks. One of the things that I pride myself on with these huskies is that they are baby safe. That people do not need to walk up and put their hands out and be very tentative around my dogs for fear of the dogs biting or reacting. My dogs are been trained and raised since they were little to be gentle and accepting and friendly to pretty much everything other than squirrels. And I see a squirrel about 200 feet ahead of me. So this could get exciting all of a sudden. My dogs lose their ever-loving frickin' puppy minds when they see small furry critters. Small dogs do the same thing. Give me a big dog and they're perfectly happy. Give me a small dog and it's going to be pandemonium. Come on, girls. So over the course of the last 9 years, since I inherited my first rescue husky, and we've been coming down here every single Saturday all summer long for 9 summers, I suppose I've evolved into what could be best called a husky ambassador. I bring my dogs out, I socialize them, I introduce them to people, I make sure that I introduce lots of people to the dogs, and as I said in the last clip, it's a win-win situation. It's great for the dogs, it's great for people. I'm down right on the edge of the river now. The puppies want to go for a swim, but I'm not real big on that today. It's hard trying to maneuver this camera and control the dogs. One of my dogs is blind, and definitely requires extra attention, and I'm not giving her nearly the amount of attention that she needs. So she's suffering. I go out on these Saturday walks for the benefit of the dog, not for myself. I get my exercise during the week. Saturdays are usually just for the puppies. But this concept of being a husky ambassador, I take the dogs out and I introduce people to huskies. Everybody kind of knows, what a husky is. They're generally familiar. The dogs are very pretty. As I warned you, there's going to be lots of moments where I've got to stop. I apologize. Maybe I will actually edit this one tonight instead. Okay, back to the concept of being a husky ambassador and taking care of my blind dog. Several of the remarks that I got from yesterday's questionnaire about what I should talk to or what I should talk on at the convention were about, how do we grow the sport? How do we make the sport bigger, more accessible, bring more people in? And a lot of you were focusing in on kids, on youth. And the connection that I saw between snowmobiling and the dogs is the introducing part, is being the ambassador. And I know last year I talked about this on a blog or two. Are we getting out there? Are we taking the never ever sledding? Are we giving up a couple of our deep and steep days to take out the kids, to take out youth, to take out some ladies that have never been on the sleds, to just introduce people? Do we go out of our way? And for me, the dogs, it is a battle, just a constant battle with the puppies. They want to sniff and say hello to everything and everyone. But the battle to introduce people to the sport, I think, is very much the same as the battle to introduce people to the dogs. We want people to be comfortable around the dogs. We want new people to be comfortable and excited in the sport. And to make that happen takes, on my part, dedicated effort. I really have to go out of my way. It is not entirely pleasant, always, to take my 4 dogs on a Saturday morning and put them in the middle of 1,000 people. I think it's good for them. It's good for me as well, I suppose, but it is a lot of work. And for sledding, it's even more so. It is significant work, as you all know, to take a newbie out who's never gone on a sledding adventure, doesn't know anything about sledding, and introduce them to the sport. Come on, girls. Come on, girls. Come on, girls. Looks like today is cleaning and maintenance day down here on the trail. There's all kinds of volunteers down here working, trying to beautify the place. Thank you, ma'am. Come on, girls. Come on. Come on. Took the dogs up to a tree for a minute so I can get a couple of coherent thoughts here. I'm having more than a little challenge with the 4 dogs and all the people. Oh, I warned you, this was going to be long. It was going to be disjointed. This is what happens when you don't script videos. You don't sit down in your studio and knock them all out in a controlled environment, and have it all planned out in advance. I am down on the Snake River landing now. Turn behind me and there's the Snake River going more or less south, and the other half going more or less north back up towards Idaho Falls, and eventually all the way back up to Island Park and over to Jackson. Thank you for bearing with me, guys. I do have a good message. I think it'll be valuable. So, as a husky ambassador, the tie-in is being a snowmobile ambassador. As I was reading all your messages this morning, it dawned on me just how many similarities there really are. Okay, continuing our 10-mile, no, stay out of the water. Huskies see water, first thing they want to do is go swimming. Continuing this conversation, we're still walking down along the river walk, but I'm inside of the river just a little bit now, enjoying one of the little industrial parks that's part of this 10-mile venture. So, husky ambassador, snowmobile ambassador. The next thing I suppose we need to think about is how you get involved in snowmobiling. And I would guess everybody has their own unique story. So let me tell you my story, how I became part of this community. Back in 1984, I was attending the University of Colorado in Boulder. I was a poli-sci major, getting a pre-law degree. And I went up to one of the ski resorts and went on an organized tour. That was my first and only snowmobile trip that I'd ever taken. And I had a good time. It was fun. It was a very limited exposure, but I still enjoyed it. Lots of kids out and families right now going down this little bike path. You'll see bicycles whizzing by me in the back. And then I didn't touch sledding again for the next 15, 20 years maybe. And the next time, I had a friend of mine visiting me from South Africa. And we were in Colorado still. We went up to Grand Lake and we had rented a cabin for the weekend. We were having a good time and decided to rent a pair of snowmobiles. Now it's important to note, my one and only experience of snowmobiling was on an organized tour. And the second time I'm up in the mountains by our Rocky Mountain National Park, just outside the park, and I rented a mountain sled, having zero idea what I was doing, no training, no experience whatsoever. And myself and my friend from South Africa, who had never seen snow in his life, ventured out to go play around Grand Lake. And again, we had a really good time. Made lots of mistakes, had some amazing stucks, had no idea what we were doing, but still generally had a really good time. Now we fast forward to 2007. In January of 2007, I left Lake Havasu City, Arizona, which was arguably the hottest city in North America, and I moved to a little bitty town called Rigby, Idaho, population 3,000 back then. I went from 124 degree high temperatures to 17 below zero. That was a shocking transition that year. I remember being cold all year long, wearing long underwear in my office, wondering what in the world I was doing. I went from manufacturing high-speed performance boats and being on the lake every day to being up here and being in the cold. But that year, the company that had hired me, my boss and I and a couple of friends went up to Island Park for the first time. It was gorgeous and beautiful, and we came across a little rental shop and once again blindly rented some snowmobiles. The difference was this time I was at the south end of Island Park, which is flat and friendly and forgiving, and a much better place to learn the art of snowmobiling. And so we took those sleds out for the day and rode. And I got stuck and I rolled the sled and I did everything that, that anybody who, goes out for the first time, because effectively that was really my first day of sledding. Went out and made all the dumb mistakes, did all the wrong things, but it was in such a friendly environment, I was able to learn from those mistakes. And by the end of the day, I was in love with snowmobiling. Absolutely in love. I was ready to buy sleds that day. One day on the mountain, and I was hooked. It's like, I had sold my boats, I had sold the jet skis, gotten rid of all my summer gear, and had fully embraced winter. I gotta show you that this is cool. This is the kind of place that Idaho Falls is. We're walking along, there's a tree, and there's a bowl with water for the dogs. I love living here. So after a day without any proper instruction or knowledge or understanding at all, getting stuck countless numbers of times, and getting stuck on flat, open fields, I'd fallen in love with sledding and loved it, and I've never looked back. But I had no friends that were sledders. I had no organization that was sledders. I had no infrastructure whatsoever to support me. And it was that initial exposure that actually led me to the Snow West forums. And in 2008, the very next winter, I became a major member of the forums, and I started milking people for all the knowledge and expertise I could possibly get. And by 2009, I'd worked my way up to being the admin on the site. You know, I bought my first 3 sleds. I was riding as often as I possibly could. Developed friendships with lots of people in the neighborhood that we'd moved into and bought a house, and actually started to learn properly how to ride, how to get unstuck. You know, I made the incredible decision to buy Yamahas. And you know, I don't regret that. I've had 5 or 6 Yamahas. I loved the big 4 strokes. I bought them because I wanted the absolute most dependable sled in the world, and they were. They were also the heaviest sled in the world, and I didn't understand that, but I was young, and I was strong, and it didn't make any difference. So if I had a 650-pound sled, so what? I learned how to ride that sled and how to unstuck that sled, and those things all work. My sleds are all at home, all bound up for the winter.
Oh boy, look at this troop.
Yeah, they're my girls. I take my huskies out, and that is the #1 comment I get constantly. Well, where's your sled? And I can look people right in the eye and I can smile and say, my sleds are at home sitting on the trailer. I don't mention that they have, 325 horsepower, but that's okay. So over the next year or two, as I fell in love with the sport, I began to learn about the sport. But to this day, and it's, 16 years later, give or take, I'm still not a member of any snowmobile club. I've never gone to a snowmobile activity other than sled activities that I've hosted as an admin on Snow West. And I think that's a really interesting commentary, and it goes a long ways to the point of today's whole vlog. I've always looked at, and I still do, and I'm guilty, and I may be totally wrong, but I look at these snowmobile clubs as old men's drinking clubs. And forgive me if that's not the case, because I understand that may not be the case, but that's always been the impression that I've had. I look at snowmobile clubs and it's a bunch of guys who get together and ride sleds from one bar to the next bar. And that just could not be less interesting to me than anything else. I don't drink. I don't care if you drink. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't smoke, and I don't care if you smoke. It doesn't bother me at all. But I don't like to hang out with a bunch of smokers and a bunch of drinkers as a general rule. When I started going up to Canada, all right, hang on a second. You have to take a water break. As we walk by the stream, the dogs always have to go in and cool off. I mean, let's face it, they're huskies. Huskies love water. You're getting more husky content today than I've ever given you before. I hope you're okay with that. If you're not a fan of huskies, I apologize. If you're not a dog fan, you should repent and change your evil ways. All right, back to the clubs. When I started going up to Canada, and make no mistake, going up to Revelstoke and Kamloops, Moose Lips, Beaver Tail, and all the crazy places they have up there, I freaking love riding in Canada. But Canada has a really strong club culture. Every place we went to ride, you had to buy a pass for entrance into an area that was maintained by a specific club. And that's very different than the United States. Down here, at least in the West, I've never ridden back east, at least in the Western US, you buy a state tag for your sled, and that's pretty much the end of it. Once you've got the tag on your sled, you can go ride all day long, knock yourself out. Okay, the puppies just, come on girls, come on. Found something they absolutely had to sniff. So the club mentality is a Canadian thing. And I think, again, I don't know, but I think the club mentality is an Eastern thing also. In the Western US, where most of the riders are mountain riders rather than trail riders, I get the impression that club membership is very different than it is back east. And again, this is where I got the feeling that it's a much older demographic. Guys getting together that are hanging out. Good morning. Morning. Having fun, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of 20s and 30s, maybe some 40s. in that group, whereas the mountain rider demographic tends to be that 20 to 40-year-old category. So maybe the whole club thing is just not something I've been exposed to here in Southeast Idaho. We have a local club up in Island Park. I follow their Facebook page. I look at their events. I look at the faces of the members of the club, and they all look like they're 55 and above. And while I'm in that demo, I don't put myself in that demo. You know, I may be 61, but I sure as hell don't behave like it. I work hard, I exercise hard, I try to stay extremely active, and don't own a trail sled, at least not yet. I have to admit, I've been considering one. I may get two. I have one for mountain sledding and one for trail sledding. We are finally coming up on the halfway point of the walk down this little path here. I'll zoom in a bit. You can see there's the big lake at the end of the trail, and some big, beautiful fountains down there. And there's a lovely little stream that runs all the way along this walk. I know I go on and on about how much I like where I live, but I really do. I absolutely love living in Southeast Idaho. It is just a beautiful, beautiful place to live. Very affordable, reasonable economic opportunities, and frickin' drop-dead spectacular snowmobiling in the wintertime, which of course everybody knows has to be one of the highest priorities when choosing a place to live. I enjoy using the forward-facing camera. I wasn't able to do this last year. Now that I've got it, I can get some much more entertaining video for everybody. And getting this zoom working has been a real nice feature as well. And of course, I've got the huskies that keep me company, and that just makes it all the more entertaining. I know, you guys live for this, don't you? That's why you log in and watch these crazy videos of mine. Right. More husky action. All the dogs have to go in the river. Come on, girls. Come on, keep coming. Come on, girls, come on. Let's get out. Come on, babies. The blind dog always has a special challenge. Love my huskies. All right, so the club mentality. Half our community seems to be in favor of clubs. The other half of the community seems to be completely ignorant of clubs, or at least non-participatory. And since I'm going to a club meeting, the Idaho State Snowmobile Association, I suppose I need to learn more about what the whole club environment is, because this is something I am simply ignorant of. And I have no hesitancy to admit when I don't know what I don't know. And you can see the lake is full of moving husky targets. And the dogs would like nothing more than to go down and get all those geese. But there are oodles of them. The lake gets just covered with geese. And the dogs absolutely love to go chase after those geese if I'll let them. So the question is, how do we grow the sport? How do we promote snowmobiling? How do we get people that are non-snowmobilers to consider snowmobiling? One of the letters was talking about youth and dirt biking. And, why is that segment of youth activity growing and we see so few kids in sledding? And I thought, well, summer versus winter. Summer is a much more friendly environment to go out than winter is. Cost of entry is a huge barrier to snowmobiling. When you walk down and you look at new sleds, I sent out a little flyer, I don't know what you want to call it, a graphic about a week ago when I saw a bunch of sleds that were for sale in a little shop in, where were we? Grand Junction, Colorado, I think. But they had like 500 snowmobiles in stock, and they were all mountain sleds. And the cheapest one was about $11,500. Compare that to going out and getting a dirt bike for $4,000 or $5,000, and getting your summertime riding gear, which you could probably get a complete outfit for well under $1,000, compared to picking up a snowmobile, which would cost you, $10,000, $12,000 at the low end for a new sled. And then you're going to spend a couple of $1,000s in gear on the low end and many thousands of dollars in gear on the high end, depending on what part of the sport you want to dive into. You know, mountain riding is not cheap. I'm not suggesting that's where we bring the kids in to begin with, but if you're going to get a kid or a youth involved, they're going to want to go do the fun stuff. So you might introduce them to a trail ride, but they're probably going to want to get off trail in short order and do something that's fun and exciting. And I've been trying to think about how we go about doing that. How do we put a better picture, paint a better face, you know, as it were, on sledding in general? And I'm not sure that I have the answer yet, but I think that was the consensus comment that people want me to talk about, is how do we grow the sport? How do we keep enough people involved that all the Sierra Clubbers don't succeed in closing all of the land and shutting down the access? When was the last time you heard of a brand new section of land being opened up for sledding? Rather, what we hear is, you know, this little chunk here was closed, that trail was closed, this section of forest was closed. You know, the National Park Service shuts it down. They don't want us to come in. The state forest and the national forest keep inflicting more restrictions. Back east where you guys have to deal with private property and easements, they want to get rid of the sledders. I mean, this has been a slow, gradual losing battle now for decades, if I understand it right. And my perception is on Snow West, from the comments that I get in general, if it doesn't directly affect me, frankly, I just don't care. That seems to be what I hear from most riders. And again, the demo that I deal with are younger, more aggressive mountain riders. And they really just don't, frankly, give a damn. If they lose an area and it's their area, they get excited for a little while. But they don't seem to be long-term committed to sled preservation. Here you go, girls. Want a drink? Want a drink? Got to give huskies lots of water, kind of like camels. And I don't know how you change that. I suppose I can draw the same political analogy, you know, getting teenagers and 20-somethings involved in politics and involved in voting and being active as Americans is hard. I'm not sure why. When I was 18, man, I was excited. I voted the first time I could, and I've never missed an election. But I know a lot of, you know, Gen Zers that don't. They just don't get involved, again, unless it directly, personally impacts them. And when we look at the environmentalist side, you know, the Sierra Clubbers and all the people of that general genre, they're extremely successful. Oh my gosh. How much land have you seen put away into nature conservancies and locked up, you know, year after year after year, 1 acre, 1 square mile at a time? They lock that land up and they put it away, and once it's there, it's locked up forever. Nothing ever comes out. You know, once something's been made wilderness, it's always wilderness. Once it's given to the National Park Service, it's always in the National Park Service. It's a one-way route, and we never win. Never, never, never when that happens. You know, I talk about going to Jackson all the time because it's a place that I enjoy. There's a 600-acre parcel of land for sale in Jackson. The asking price is $100 million for the land. And the current chatter over there is that the environmental groups are going to try to raise $30 or $40 million of that as a donation to help purchase the land and transfer it to Grand Teton National Park. So once again, another 600 acres of land will be locked up permanently and never be developed, never be lived on, never be used for anything other than, you know, potentially unmotorized walking. And understand, I'm not against the national park system. I'm really not. When I look at Jackson, there's so little land over there to develop and so many people that desperately need homes. I look at that and I just shake my head. It's like, good grief. You know, if there was ever a town that desperately needed open acreage so that they could build low and moderate income housing for people to live in, that's it. And yet they're gonna raise $100 million to buy land, to donate it, just to make sure that it gets locked away and can never be used again. So growing the sport, getting new people into the sport, bringing new participants into the sport, and then making sure that we don't lose available place to play, to go out and recreate, were the two overriding themes of everything I heard in the replies I got the other night. We're walking across a lovely little bridge here and come to a series of man-made waterfalls on this walk. Now you should get used to this theme with me. I talk a little and then I show something really beautiful. And the dogs are trying to get down into the water. For a snowmobiler, I'm a real nature guy. I love getting out in nature. I love hiking, walking, just being out, being part of it all. I've got the perfect dogs, Lord knows. I don't think you could have a better dog than a husky for if you like to be outside and doing the things that I enjoy doing. I suppose this goes hand in hand with the videos I do in the wintertime, where I really do try to spend some time just capturing the beauty. You know, the sport is fun and it's thrilling and it's exciting, but for me at least, it's an excuse or a mechanism to be out on the mountain, to be in the middle of it. And look at this, this is gorgeous. They did such a nice job. Yeah, I love it up here. Well, you're sticking with me for what has to be the longest, most rambling, disjointed stream of consciousness video I've ever done. We're about 3/4 of the way done now, and we're just coming up on the falls, so I'm going to flip the camera around. And we've made it to the other side of the river now, which is where the Idaho Falls are at. And you can see there in the far distance, that's the Idaho Falls Temple, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's the Mormon temple, which is kind of the center point for downtown. But, drop dead gorgeous. Every snowflake you were riding last winter is coming over the falls right now. This is where it all ends up. And if you're down here in April or May, it is a sight to behold. It gets wild. So as we're at the 3/4 point now on this Saturday morning walk, now you guys know what I do pretty much every single Saturday. Been doing this for 9 years with the dogs. We come back to the question at hand, which is our sledding community. What can we do to grow, to strengthen, to secure snowmobiling in North America? And I don't have the answer. As is often the case with a good admin or a moderator, I've got questions and I put the questions out to you guys and see if you have better answers than I have. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I'll give you some more nature shots. Yeah, the walk down here, again, is just is drop dead gorgeous. It's just such a beautiful place to be. Lots of people, lots of guests come to visit. Lots of greenery. And this path is about 10 miles long. It's a loop, goes down one side of the river, comes back up the other side. You can see the farmer's market right across the river. That's where we started out earlier this morning. Up to the very prettiest part of the whole walk. And looks like the observation decks, oh, maybe they just stained them, they're all closed. But we'll flip and see what we can see. It should get loud. And this is not a microphone issue, this is just thundering water coming across this big artificial dam that creates the falls. we'll walk down the little path here and see. We give you commentary about the snowmobiling community and raising huskies, and then we stop and we have a moment of nature, you know, something that's beautiful and magnificent. Look at that. I mean, that's gorgeous. The sound is so wonderful. And again, you come down here in early spring and it is just torrents of water coming over that. Hard to imagine how much water comes down the Snake River and pours across these gates. It's really quite beautiful. And if we come up on the backside, and you can see the top of the falls and the big artificial lake that the city created by having the falls. And the green belt just keeps on going for miles to go yet. Well, you stayed with me to the end, and we're right back where we started. That's my red truck. Any of you that have ever gone riding with me have seen her parked out in the lot. We've made the loop. Started at 9 o'clock. It's 12:30 now. It's been 3.5 hours of walking and intermittent vlog postings. I hope this made some sense. I'll do my best when I get home to edit out some of the randomness and see if I can't make this more coherent. But let's open a conversation. I want to pursue the discussion of what I should present to the ISSA and what you guys think. Your opinion is valuable. This is your chance to participate, even though you might not get invited to come and talk to all the presidents of the statewide chapters. It's an important topic. There's a lot of comments that you made. I look forward to hearing some more comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if this whole concept of being an actual sled ambassador makes sense. I know what it means to be a husky ambassador. I do that. That's something I've learned over 9 years, but maybe we need to look at becoming snowmobile ambassadors. Again, this is Christopher from snowwest.com. We'll see you online.